Hello, this is Mallet, and this is a short podcast about the rise and fall, or as I call it, the curse of Piranha Bytes. For people who didn't care too much about backstage info about Gothic, uh, I am doing this podcast so I can bring you some of the information. Of course, there might be errors because mostly this is gathered from personal experience in different online communities, but let me know in the comments if I say anything that is not true or if you would like to know more about a certain subject. Here we go. Piranha Bytes was formed in 1997 and started working on the game we call Gothic. The company enjoyed a lot of leeway, and Mike Hoge started going nuts with the concepts and story. Given the rate of technological progress of the time, his original concept was subject to many changes, which led to a ballooning budget. The game was published by Egmont Interactive under the label of Shoebox. Piranha Bytes became a subsidiary of Phenomedia AG in 1999. The ballooning budget was of no concern as investors were plenty in an era known as the dot-com bubble. Unfortunately, the bubble went bust, as people realized the ratio between investments and returns was not sustainable. Phenomedia gave Piranha Bytes an ultimatum for the release date, and they had to write a complete story, polish, and launch the game in only about 4 months. Launching Gothic did not solve the problems, but Piranha Bytes started working on the Gothic sequel. As a result of bad business decisions, Egmont Interactive went belly up in around 2001. In 2002, Phenomedia AG also went belly up because of a huge fraud scandal. Soon enough, after that, Piranha Bytes went belly up as well. The team reorganized into a new company called Pluto 13 GmbH, but they were still calling themselves Piranha Bytes, and they took over the rights to Gothic. Employees were shareholders, and I don't know how many and who exactly, but part of them were CEO Michael Ruva and Bjorn Pankratz, and this might explain some of the bad things that will happen in the future. They soon found a publisher in the form of Jowood, with the condition that the Gothic publishing rights went to them, and they discarded the work on the Gothic sequel since the rights were a mess, considering the bankruptcy of Egmont and Phenomedia, and they started working on Gothic II. Bjorn took a more important role, and together with Mike they managed to make a game in a record time, as well as crank out the expansion Gothic 2 Night of the Raven. The game was launched to universal acclaim and cemented the series' status as a cult classic. The returns were very good indeed, and it didn't take long for Gothic 3 to be greenlit. Basically, Mike took Bjorn under his wing to expand on the managerial and creative possibilities. Probably in order to avoid some licensing costs, as well as purely for the comfort of the established workflow, Piranha Bytes and Jowood decided to have Piranhas make their own engine from scratch, the Geno engine. Another reason might have been the desire by Jowood to license the same engine to other studios to compete with the more established ones. A big problem of the development of Gothic 3 was that the project was simultaneously overly ambitious and plagued with bad design decisions. They decided on a huge world without actually realizing the implications regarding the engine complexity or the amount of content they would need to add. Furthermore, they strayed from the traditional faction systems that made the first two entries so popular. Mike Hoge himself stated that the changes regarding this, as well as the non-linearity of the progression through the world or conscious design decisions that he accepts failed with the community. Jowood started having financial problems as well, and decided to launch Gothic 3 in a severely unfinished state. The story was not finished, and the game was bugged beyond playability. in what concerns both regular bugs and game-breaking bugs, and it drew a massive backlash from the fans. After a couple of patches, Joe Wood wanted Piranha Bytes to start working on a new title, well before Gothic 3 was actually fixed. However, the trust was broken, and soon after, Piranha Bytes and Joe Wood parted ways, with Joe Wood retaining the publishing rights to the franchise. Joe Wood went on to release an expansion of Gothic 3 called Forsaken Gods, which was even more of a disaster than Gothic 3 was, as well as a sequel, Arcania, and an expansion pack for that as well. But soon enough, based on the horrible business decisions, Joe Wood also went belly up and was acquired dimes on the dollar by Nordic Games. In the meantime, Piranha Bytes signed with Deep Silver, developing a thoroughly underrated Reason game, which was well received by the fans of the company, but which never found a footing with the mainstream players, as the budget did not account for models or animations that were on par with other games of the era. A big problem for Reason was that it had a lot of great things, but a severely bad marketing strategy. Not only was it translated into English, but it had a fucking A-class localization where a specialist rewrote most of the dialogue so that it feels natural and native to English speakers. Furthermore, and this is not something that most people know, the voice cast featured John Rhys-Davies, who played Gimli in Lord of the Rings, Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in the same series, and the recently famous Lena Headey, who played Cersei in Game of Thrones. But the marketing budget slept instead of aggressively promoting this fact. Reason 2 was soon greenlit. This is where the story starts going down really quickly. If Reason 1 was the brainchild of Mike Hoge, who had a wonderful idea for the sequel, the story says that either it was a contest between him and Bjorn Pankratz, or simply Bjorn went behind Mike's back and pitched a different sequel to Deep Silver. Regardless of what the truth is, instead of focusing on the lore previously established, Bjorn's pitch capitalized on the pirate craze of the era, Pirates of the Caribbean, Assassin's Creed, and so on, and shifted the focus to that. The first sign of trouble was the first teaser trailer of the game, where the new nameless hero was just a brute forcing his way without any tact into a bar. The reality was even darker when the game came out, and Patty was revealed to have been, let's say, ghettofied into a foul-mouthed Karen, as opposed to the soft-spoken, feminine, strong Patty portrayed by Lena Headey in the first game. The pirate theme was all just a bunch of cliches, design dialogues, colonialism, while the world did not have any internal logic. Mike Hoge took a secondary role in the development of the game, staying just for the development of Reason 2 based on the commitments he already made. After that, Mike soon left Piranha Bytes. By this time, Jenny Pankratz, Bjorn's wife, took a more involved role in the company, and pretty soon the couple were the main focus points of the marketing campaigns. By this time, a lot of other core members left, including Sasha Heinrichs. He is a person who did a lot of 3D work on the series. Despite the mixed reception of Reason 2, Reason 3 was greenlit. It doubled down on the pirate theme and was launched to dismal reviews and severe fan backlash. In the background, the company called Koch Media was basically controlling Deep Silver and was also controlling Joe Wood before it was acquired. Fans speculated about their involvement in both the downfall of the Gothic series and the Reason series. In 2018, Deep Silver was acquired by THQ Nordic, the same company previously called Nordic Games, the ones who purchased Joe Wood. Under this brand, Piranha Bytes published the Elex series, the 100% brainchild of Bjorn. It was not a disaster and sold quite well, however, in my personal opinion, not because the game was great, but because the fans of the studio kept hoping for a return to form. In my personal opinion, again, personal, so hit that dislike if you want. The game is a disaster from a creative standpoint. Elex seemingly comes from an 11-year-old on meth. It smashes up together Vikings, cowboys, the Inquisition, the Universal Soldier, the Nazis, guns, magic, swords, zombies, and jetpacks without, let's face it, anything having too much logic in the way the world works. Fans kept hoping for a comeback. By 2019, Piranha Bytes managed to reclaim the rights to the Gothic series, but they did nothing with them. They used the rights as leverage so that they could be purchased themselves by THQ Nordic. By 2020, both THQ Nordic and Koch Media became subsidiaries of the Embracer Group. Still, even with the resources now available and offered by THQ that they go back to Gothic, they refused. Elex 2 was a dismal failure, butchering characters and the models looking even worse than in the previous game. It failed commercially and critically, and the writing was on the wall. They were offered yet again the chance to develop the Gothic remake, but Bjorn turned that down. That way, THQ Nordic established Alchemy Interactive to develop the Gothic remake, a studio which brought back Kai Rosenkrantz, the composer, and Sascha Heinrichs. By the end of 2023, Bjorn and his wife left Piranha Bytes, as it was clear that the studio will not receive funding anymore. The remaining people kept trying to find a buyer, but considering the talent leak and the lack of IPs, nobody offered to buy them out. In 2024, they were officially closed. As the debacle unfolded, reports kept coming through about what happened with them. They were advised by specialists to improve on the workflow with new tools, get an established engine for their games, and hire more people, yet Bjorn personally laughed at that and turned it down. By the time Elex 2 came, half of the people in Piranha Bytes wanted to work on a new IP or revert back to Gothic. However, this was also vetoed by Bjorn, proceeding with the development of probably Elex 3. Not only Bjorn never was creative enough to create something compelling by himself, but under his leadership all talent underwent a massive exodus, without actually replacing them with people who might challenge his decisions. Besides the massive task to micromanage every single element of the development of Elex, he decided it was also a good idea to become the composer for the game, further stretching his ability to coordinate such projects. In conclusion, the Gothic, Reason, and Elex series left in their wake a long list of bankrupted companies that either had to close down or be acquired. Egmont, Shoebox, Phino Media, Jowood, Deep Silver, Spellbound, they developed Arcania, Piranha Bytes GmbH, and Pluto 13 GmbH, making the whole affair seem cursed. It has been brought to my attention by some people that Piranha Bytes could have stayed open a while longer because they had government financing, so I did a little research. The reason why I don't think this has any relevance here is because the 3.2 million euros were a government grant, and I think they have some rules regarding those money. The money given by the government only accounts for about 25 to 50% of the game budget, meaning Embracer would have had to cough up at least another 3.2 mil. I also suspect that in case the game didn't get made and released, the money would have had to be refunded unless the studio went bankrupt. Considering Piranha Bytes was fully owned by Embracer probably would have had to refund the money if they decided to dissolve them later. Furthermore, assuming Embracer would have agreed to those 3.2 million, they would have had a budget of around 6.4 million I guess. Sure, that accounts for about 3 years of development if you factor in only salaries, but for 30 people team, there are other expenses as well. Let's say software licenses, just the Creative Cloud is about $90 per month per team member. 3D modeling licenses about $1,900 per year per member. Let's count in Windows and Office licenses, third-party software plugins for their engine like Speed3. The second expense would be outsourcing. At the very least, they would have needed to outsource the animations and the trailer rendering like they did in the past, not even considering other possible expenses like 3D models, textures, and so on that would make sense to outsource these days. They would still need to pay for studio time and voice actors. Marketing and distribution costs. Utilities. Water, a ton of electricity, gas for at least some of the employees. Then you have game development requirements like monster PCs, and that also goes towards a game's budget. And let's not talk about man hours used by the publisher to check in on the development, distribution, negotiations, HR stuff, legal counseling, IP registrations, server and cloud storage, accounting, and so on. So, in my humble opinion, overall the game would have cost Embracer over 10 to 15 million euros at the very least to develop and release over the course of 3 years with no guarantee of making the money back. And if I were to give a personal estimate, I think developing a worthwhile game that would have a chance of making its money back would be around 10 million a year. Best guess scenario for Piranha Bytes, those 3.2 mil would have been 25% of the budget, giving a total of 12.8 million overall, meaning a full game made in maximum 2 years. And, of course, the end product would have been another huge failure, and this time Embracer wouldn't have had the goodwill of the fans to account for the shoestring budget. After saying all this, let's end on a happy note. I believe Alchemia is doing a wonderful job, and even though Piranha Bytes is dead now, they have left with us something very special. And since Kai and Sasha are back with the team, let's hope that in the next months or years, even after the release of the remake, more of the original developers will come to Alchemia, join the team, and contribute to a wonderful Gothic 2 remake on a scale of which we have never dreamed.